Hello, Kansas City. Welcome to another wonderful day out there. This is the show that we've been calling Life After, which is a show that features conversations with teachers and their students after high school has passed, to kind of jump into that story that we never really hear that much about after that connection kind of is over. During the pandemic and during some of the times when we were all stuck in our own homes and doing school that way, I started reaching out to a number of students. And so there's a lot of interviews out there if you look for them. And today we're joined by another fantastic person that I met at Paseo Academy, where I have had the luck to work a long time. So welcome, Jacob Butler, to Life After.
The pleasure to be here with a friend from high school. We were never my teacher, but a teacher in other ways, and I cherished the lunches we shared. It was a good time.
Very cool. Yeah, so Jacob and I had a chance to kind of unwind a little together and talk about music and, do the lunch experience that is very fast when you're in a school setting. It's hardly a lunch that people experience out in the different work world, but we got in our moments and we talked about music and things, and it's neat that you still remember and value that. So let's wind back. Generally, I start off these interviews asking you, what year did you graduate? And then really, what do you still remember the most about that year and that experience?
So I graduated in 2014. And what do I remember about that year and experience?
Kind of what stands out? What stayed with you over these 7 years the most, do you think, from being there, part of that class?
I would say part of me felt kind of like, not in a pretentious way, but a bit of an outsider. I wasn't like super close with most of my classmates. I am still good friends with Caitlin O'Reilly, who is a member of that class. Mm-hmm. But otherwise kind of haven't kept in touch. But I do kind of value the people that I was around, most of the people in my class. I mean, it's just like, I think high school brought out unfortunately a lot of darkness and understanding of parts of the world that are a little bit, were not easy for me to digest and still hard to process. But I think that particular time in my life was very crazy. I was in a deep relationship with someone at the time. I was very much in love and very much probably a little bit codependently so, and it ended in flames shortly after I graduated, and I was at an internship. I was a big stress head at the time, I think, and still am, but I didn't have many coping mechanisms that were healthy, and I think it was actually quite a sadly quite a dark time around the time I graduated, and I felt pretty bitter. But that's everybody's journey is different, and mm-hmm. I mean this not to be a downer on the school. It was just a lot of personal stuff I was dealing with, and
absolutely.
I remember I was very excited to be out finally, and I remember sleeping in a lot. But
gotcha. Okay, so that is kind of naturally the second question that we always explore here, and I remember it, which is why I go back to it to ask people about, is that moment where it's all over, at least in this first experience of what we call traditional education, and then there's a lot of decision making that goes on after that. So do you remember what process you took, or what it was really like? You said kind of to go through some of that searching, and then what did you decide to do?
So this is an excellent question, and it relates to a lot of things. I honestly Admittedly, I never attended any college. I have not yet, and I am not saying I'm still opposed to it because I'm not necessarily, but that what I do know is where I was at then, and relating to some of what I said before, I know I was not ready for college. I know I was not, I felt very exhausted at that period of time in my life and just in general. And high school was enough to process and go through for me at the time. And I also, I suppose, yeah, I was just not ready. And I think that one thing that I must admit, that I reluctantly admit, is that I do feel people kind of pressuring so hard for me to go to college was honestly a real detractor. It was like, it really made me kind of like get young and rebellious about it. It's like, no, I don't want your college. It's like stop shoving it down my throat and my face, and then maybe I'll consider it. But it felt very much like, almost like a guilt trip, and I did not appreciate that, and I still don't. But that doesn't mean necessarily that I don't wish things were different, and then maybe I kind of had my life been different in a lot of situations, then maybe it would have been great had I gone to college. But I also, again, don't regret not going either. Spending quite a bit of time on music after I graduated, and many late nights and things like that. So.
Okay. So yeah, that's gotten us all wondering then. So you confirmed that college was not for right now. So what did your right now start to be? Did you get out there in the work world, take a job, start pushing through those day-to-day grinds, or had you been doing that all along?
So this is also an interesting question, because through certain circumstances and situations and my style, work is a hard thing for me. And I don't just mean like I'm not a hard worker. I mean the workforce, the style, and dealing with often dealing with customers and the jobs that I can get as a not college person. It's a tough thing for me. I was as soon as I graduated, there was an internship I got through the school with Felix as well, who he will also be somebody you're interviewing or may have already.
Yeah,
and I know
we've talked.
Yeah,
Felix Small, right? Yeah,
I'm fond of him. But regardless of that, we were both at this internship, and I started working part time after high school, and then it ended, and I kind of froze a bit. I didn't do anything for about 9 months, except my music and a lot of writing at the time, but I wasn't working. And then I worked at Waldo Pizza a couple times, which was not a lot of fun. And I worked at a video store from 2015 to 2016 at some point in those times. And
we still had video stores in 2015 and 2016. Wow.
Yeah, I could go in depth about it, but I will not. And it was an interesting experience, Video Mania.
Wow.
And after that, I got laid off, which was very discouraging as somebody who's kind of like doing cashier work and kind of nervous about it. But I'm happy to report that I am currently working at Michael's as a framer, doing framework in the back and doing a little bit of transactions, but not a lot. But getting better at that. And there's different than most cashier positions, the stuff you do on the computer and write out is actually quite a bit more intricate. But I'm at a place in my life where, for one, Michael's is not it's not like there's 100 people in line getting frames. It's cut a person or two at a time. It's slower, and I can be more mindful in that moment, and I can make all the decisions, and we can talk about it, and they're patient with me. So that is good that I'm finally, I almost kind of never wanted to do cashiering again when I got laid off, because it was quite a discouraging experience. But honestly, it could very well not be related to my cashier work. It's just hard to say. It just was what it was.
Well,
and I was before this, I was a sacker for 3 years at the Constantino's Market in Brookside. That as well was not necessarily an enjoyable experience, however, extremely important in learning to read people, to be kind of like, I mean, in a lot of ways, I was about 22 when I started sacking, and up until about 25, and I learned so much about dealing with people and interacting with people and not pushing weird boundaries or saying the strange things. And it's like a lot of that was hard, a lot of that was unpleasant, a lot of it was devastating, but it was important. It was very important.
Very cool. And so, okay, let's explore, because I know some things about what you say. You're exploring music and this and that. I know you do a lot of that on social media, and you have, I don't even know how to really explain it, but you basically have found a way to replicate some of the best riffs maybe that exist on keyboard in history, and then kind of have them in green screen behind you, and kind of have this whole theatrical production now that I can remember started much smaller scale or with less elements to it. So it's fun to ask somebody about their artistry, because I know that's where you're really coming to life and you're being 100% you, I can tell. What are you trying to accomplish with that, or what's going on there, I guess?
I know no matter what time in my life over the last 10 years, darkest to lightest, music has been my closest associate and friend, and I need it. And I mean, I guess a lot of these riffs and videos are parts of songs that have moved me to tears or have just made me feel alive or exhilarated. These are I am a feeling person. It is my strongest trait, and it is also debilitating at times, but I also know that it's hugely important to making me who I am, and to helping me be a good artist, to be in touch with my feelings and to be in touch with melodies that make me feel and make other people feel. So these videos have been a way of kind of like letting off steam and feeling good. And I mean, it's just been a constantly positive experience. And what I'd like to note is that I am now starting a new chapter. I have released 3 videos now of songs that I'm doing on my own. They're my full tracks. I do not know how to record or produce properly yet, but these are the best I can do for the time being. And I'm like, hey, I will take a moment of ego to say, with the videos that you're talking about of songs I've recreated moments of, I have been acknowledged by the keyboard player of Journey. I have been acknowledged by M83, and I have been acknowledged by local natives and Phoenix. And at that point, as ego as that all sounds, that is actually just extremely motivating. And to go, hey, if I can impress these people with song or moments of song, like, I need to really, it's a good turning point now to just start my best to at least put out more of what I'm working on that takes influence from all of these things. And express I mean, these are the realest feelings, because they're what I create. They're what naturally has come out, not from music theory or anything. I started messing with keyboards just over a decade ago, and about 8 years ago, it got serious. It's like I'm at least trying to spend an hour a day messing with them. And I'm not Steve Vai. I don't spend 4 hours necessarily, but I'll try. I'd like to get there. And
no, I truly understand. I have the same situation. I play around a lot and still do, and find that's the only way I kind of unwind or process things, or things coming shooting out of your fingers, right? Just all these emotions that you didn't really even know you could produce. And then, there's some really cool studies going on about the electronic age, and just watched a great documentary, Mark Ronson. It's called Watch the Sound. If you haven't heard of this show, you would just love every bit of it. Every episode's about another electronic device that revolutionized the music industry. And so, all right, well, hey, pitch us forward a little bit. What are some of your future thoughts about what you're going to do down the road? Are you setting up any goals formally for yourself, or are you staying with kind of see where it goes?
I think I'm staying and seeing where it goes. I'm going to keep trying to put out as much of my own material on social media, videos of my own work a lot more. I might do a couple more here and there videos of parts of songs I like specifically, but you know, I've been, some of these albums that I'm working on are going on 2 to 3 years of being songs that are like kind of established, and they keep getting expanded on. And I'm glad it's given me time to expand what they are. But the last couple videos are all, you know, fifth renditions of these songs coming through a lot of time spent with them, and they all mean a lot to me. It's not filler, you know. It's all
Very
stuff
cool.
that like is you know.
Very cool. Well, I can remember a lot of these similar interests from our conversations during lunchtime, and I will say they were important to me too. I've heard you mention they were introductions to various artists and things that I could share with you, like Spiral and Vangelis, and I loved that story that I got to share when I really did take that to my third grade class
Yeah.
when we were just to bring in our favorite music from home, and people looked at me like I was just totally insane. And so I think our conversations were fun, so many years apart, but yet so many things in common. So let's do this. A final question, usually in these episodes. And thank you for being here so much. I hope Kansas City, you're listening and ready to find some of Jacob Butler's work out there. What advice do you think you needed to hear back then? Or what advice do you think young people need to hear now? That's kind of, you know, brewing to the top is something you might think would be wisdom that was useful for yourself, or wisdom you might think would be useful to share. Because I know as I'm coming out of the world back then, I really did look and turn to the voices of others, some of just what exactly should I carry as I go out into this world, or what should my mantra be, or you know, how should I start to kind of govern my thinking. And I've heard you say a lot of smart stuff in that category of thought. So that's kind of our final question. What would you suggest?
Oh, it's a great question, and it's a big one, and it's heavy, and it's not a simple one to answer for me. Um, uh, be a couple things, I think. Most specifically, like, um, you know, I remember for me, if I wanted to say to me, I'd say, you know, uh, I mean, you know, I kind of want to say, you know, don't slow down, but I also know that I kind of needed some time, and I think this all goes back to learning compassion for yourself. Sometimes it's so easy in dark spaces to kind of like cave and feel guilty for not being where you'd like to be. And I mean, I can speak now. I am, you know, 7 years graduated, and I am still living with my parents. And I know how that can look really rough for some people, but I know it's life is complicated and it's not simple. And just compassion is literally so much the answer to so many problems in our world, and removing shame and guilt so much is huge. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's very complicated to have a one word phrase or answer of how to like.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But yeah, compassion. That just find compassion. Don't tolerate lack of compassion. I think one of my greatest detractors was a very toxic friend who did not have compassion in his life that I followed loyally, and it sent me down years of trouble. And I don't fault myself because the world's complicated, and I was unintentionally groomed into this kind of thing like this. Yeah. But yeah, just find compassion.
Very cool. All right. Well, you've heard it here, Kansas City, and the unconventional wisdom of Jacob Butler. Maybe that could be like one of your things you're right as you go down the road. But I album cover, I don't know, the unconventional wisdom of Jacob Butler. It sounds pretty good. It's kind of like Miseducational Lauryn Hill, just a whole lot different, right? So thank you. Thank you for being here, Jacob, and I appreciate the time. Thank you, Kansas City, for tuning in. If you've enjoyed Life After KCPS, or actually just what we call Life After these days, please reach out and find me on the internet. I'd see Odam at kcpublicschools.org would be a good way to reach me. And we could talk about having you come on as a guest and tell your narrative. So thanks, sir. I know every voice that comes on here serves as another possible person for someone else to connect with. And I guarantee there are people listening and will be listening. They'll certainly connect with your message and understand where you're coming from. So appreciate you so much. We're signing off for today on Life After. Thanks, everybody.